New Thought Media Network and the Universal Joy Center are proud to bring you The Joy Show. One voice, one story, infinite inspiration. Join your host, Barbara Jean, every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Tune in live or watch anytime on youtube.com/UJOYC. The Joy Show with Barbara Jean. The perfect way to get inspired on Friday afternoons. Only on New Thought Media Network. And please like, share, and subscribe. And now, let's join Barbara Jean on The Joy Show.
Good afternoon and welcome to The Joy Show. Joy being an acronym for just one you. Yes, each one of us is unique and special, and so our show is always about bringing the best of the best to the front and center. So let's begin with our land acknowledgement. We are honored to be meeting on the land that many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island have called home. We acknowledge and thank the original caretakers and knowledge keepers of this territory, and we also give thanks to all other Indigenous peoples, recorded and unrecorded, who have shared responsibility for this territory. Recognizing our ultimate oneness and acknowledging our reality, both past and present, we commit to moving forward in a spirit of mutual cooperation. We are one. Well, today our topic is, a little different than some. Today it's about spirituality, politics, and humanity. And I've been hearing from people, on different sides of the fence here going, well, spirituality and politics cannot mix. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And if you have any thoughts, please put them in the chat, and we will see if we can take a look at those as we go through the show. So many people have become uncomfortable when spirituality and politics appear in the same conversation, right? Some people believe spirituality should remain private. Others believe politics has become too divisive. And still others feel exhausted by both. And I know people in all of those areas for sure. Yet every major spiritual tradition asks us to care about human beings. Yeah. Politics, at its best, is simply how we organize ourselves as a society. Man, my tongue doesn't want to work today. La, 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 la. Organize ourselves as a society. And humanity is kind of the bridge between the two. So when spirituality informs our values, politics becomes an expression of those values, and humanity becomes the measure of whether we are living them. Okay, so spirituality informs our values, politics becomes an expression of those values, and humanity becomes the measure of whether we are living them. Make sense? Well, welcome to The Joy Show. So today we may challenge some assumption. That's exactly why we're having it. And our topic being spirituality, politics, and humanity. For many years, people have said, don't mix them. Yet when we look at the great spiritual teachers of history, they spoke about justice, compassion, dignity, inclusion, equality, and care for the vulnerable. They challenged systems that harmed people. They spoke truth to power, and not because they were political in the partisan sense, but because they were deeply human. Politics determines who has access to food, healthcare, housing, education, safety, and opportunity. Spirituality asks us whether we care. Humanity asks us, what are we going to do about it? So the question really isn't whether spirituality and politics are connected. The question is whether our spiritual values are influencing how we show up in the world. Yeah, so how are you showing up in the world today? Do you feel that the values you hold are represented in the political structure of our country and of our world at large? I'd love to hear from you. So if you're watching live, hey, put a note in your chat there and let's take a look at that. So I wanted to share a story. So imagine a village where everyone gathers water from the same well. Now, one day the well becomes contaminated and some people become sick. Others are unaffected because they have private wells. So a debate begins. One group says, let's pray. Another says, let's fix the well. A third group says, let's do both. The truth is that prayer without action will leave people thirsty. Action without wisdom often creates more problems. And the healthiest community brings heart and action together. So this is where spirituality and politics meet. Okay. Now, there's been some discussion lately whether or not we should do a land acknowledgement. And, I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad. I do it so I remind myself the importance of compassion, kindness, that I remind myself of the importance of ensuring that all of humanity has equal access to whatever is needed: food, shelter, clothing, education, job opportunities, all of that. So for me, the two automatically go together, that if my values are strong enough, then my politics will follow those same values. And my humanity is a mix of the two. So when we're journeying along, I know there's, some argument about, what's happened or hasn't happened, what's real, what isn't real. And so there's a lot of conversation. For me, the land acknowledgement is about recognizing something that occurred hundreds of years ago. And yeah, we don't want to live in the past. We want to live in the present. But in the present moment, what we are experiencing is the result of something that happened a long time ago. We're seeing poverty in places where it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. We're seeing people shunned because of their skin color, the language they speak, or simply because of their, personal heritage. So we ask the question, what is our responsibility? As human beings on the planet today, what is our responsibility? For me, it is ensuring that the least of us are cared for as well as the most of us, or the best of us. I don't think there's a best, though. See, I believe that each and every one of us is unique and special, that every one of us comes into this life experience with something really important to share, something that only we can share in the way that we do. And so very, very important that we begin to honor the individual as well as the collective. So what is spirituality, and what do we really mean when we say spirituality? Well, spirituality and religion are actually two different things, although they can coexist. And for some people, their religion is their spirituality, and for others, spirituality is something separate from a religious tradition. So what are some of the possible points of spirituality? So first off, awareness of our interconnectedness. We are connected. There is only one. When we think of the universe, we think of it as one system. And within that system, all exists. So you and me, the earth, the stuff, all of it is within that universe. And because it's all one, that means we're all connected. So what I do to the least of us, I've done to myself. What I do to the biggest or brightest of us, I've done to myself as well. So when we take a look at that, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where we are headed in that realm. So we want to make sure that we remember that we are one. There is no them and us. There's only one. So if I'm feeling a sense of division between me and another individual, that division exists within myself. And I have a choice about whether or not I'm going to allow that to expand and grow, or if I'm going to relax into it and acknowledge that oneness for both of us. So again, it's interconnection. The second thing is a recognition of inherent worth. So this is the other side of it. You know, right now we live in a world of AI. We live in a world of all sorts of, videos being created that are not necessarily truth. They might be actually AI fabrications, but we're looking at those as if that's the real meat and potatoes of what's going on. And I think we have to really take a look at who we are and what it is that we would like to experience in our world around us. And when we start to see ourselves as valuable and worthy, we begin to notice that others are valuable and worthy as well. So it's important that we see that worth, but we've got to see it for ourselves. If you don't believe in your own inherent value and worth, if there's a part of you that doesn't really like you very much, and I know many of us actually have that, then we want to heal that before we worry about anything else. Until we are showing up as whole, connected beings and seeing the wholeness in others, we can, in fact, forget that we are worthy, that as we are is enough. The way we've been created is sufficient to the task at hand. So we want to remember our own personal inherent worth. And as we really get that, we begin to see the value of every person around us. Whether we like them or not, we will still see their value. The other thing that determines, spirituality in my mind is living from compassion. Again, compassion starts with the self. I want to be compassionate with myself. If I'm sick or tired, I want to rest, take time to heal. If I'm angry and frustrated, I want to acknowledge my feelings and sit with them and explore them. Don't project them. That's never a good idea. We do it sometimes, but let's not. Instead, we go within and go, why do I feel so stuck on being right here? What if I just accepted that I am where I am and what's happening is happening, and just be compassionate with my own self, my own views, and my own life journey. As I experience compassion with myself, it's easier to show that compassion to others as well. In spirituality, we're always seeking meaning and purpose. Meaning. Yeah. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? What is life? Right? There's so many questions. What does it mean to be alive? Why am I here? What am I doing? What is the point? All of those questions, as we struggle to find meaning with our own existence and the existence of others, we start to acknowledge and recognize that everyone has a purpose. Whether they're aware of it yet or not is irrelevant. We all have a purpose, and that purpose is meant to be lived. And as we live it, we begin to experience more and more of the meaning that life holds for us. Our very existence begins to have more meaning for us as we live in that realm of purpose. So the other part of spirituality is aligning our lives with our highest values. So what do you value most? And that's a question that each one of us has to acknowledge for ourselves. What do I value in life? What do I believe is important in life? What things do I, my apologies, a little scratchy throat here. As we align with our values, maybe we believe in honesty, integrity. Maybe we believe in compassion, respect, and kindness. Pardon me. And of course, I don't have my lozenges in my room here. Pardon me. So spirituality is not merely what we believe, it's how we live. And do we live according to our beliefs and values? I am so sorry. My apologies. I just have to get some lozenges here so that I'm not coughing throughout the whole thing. Rachel Allen said, what shaped the way you see the world? Well, I think, what shaped it really has been our parents, the media, our lived experience, things that have happened to us in our lifetime. Those are things that would, definitely show us where we're at, what's going on, how best to do what we do to move forward. Thank you so much. It's always, the way we live is always about, our neighbors and our friends and our family and all of these people, the country that we live in, the politics that is predominant in that country. All of those things are determining what it is that we believe, and the way we see the world is from that perspective. I hope that helps, Rachel. It's, in the middle of my coughing, trying to make sure I get that done. Okay, so how do we live? What is the value of our life? How are we, moving forward in it? What are the things that we do? How do we do them? And if we can really center our awareness right in that place where we start to acknowledge that there's one power in the universe, spirit. When we acknowledge that, accept that, and live from that, the next things we do fall in alignment around that. And so, what is politics? Ooh, there's a loaded question. Politics, somehow has become a bit of a loaded word, but stripped down, politics is simply the process by which communities make decisions. Who gets heard, who gets protected, who gets the resources, what values shape society. Every political decision reflects human values. And we, the people, elect our politicians. And hopefully we're electing them from our values. Now, I know sometimes we hear, well, we have to kind of go with the majority because otherwise it's a wasted vote. I don't believe any vote is ever wasted. When we start doing things from the values that we hold to be important, I think we begin to live in a really different way, and a way that is truly honoring of life. So the question becomes, what values are guiding the decisions of the politicians? Are our politicians operating in ways that satisfy the majority, or do they lean more to one minority or another? These are questions that we can ask ongoing. And as we begin to align our own personal views with, the government and what's going on there, the politics of our country, our city, or our province, our state, as we begin to really take a look at that and look at what means the most to us. Now, we're going to have some divisiveness, of course, because we have more than one party. And we have millions of people who are voting. And everybody has a different lived experience. It's not good or bad or right or wrong, it's simply different. And when we begin to acknowledge that each one of us is a little different, each one of us is different from everyone else. See, I believe there are 8 billion unique and special individuals residing on the planet today. And if that's true, then there must be about 8 billion different ways we can show up. So what I would like to see is, for all of us to begin to bring together our spirituality, our political viewpoints, and begin to live in harmony with humanity. I think that's going to move us forward and create probably a more peaceful and loving world. So humanity really needs to be central to the conversation. When politics loses its humanity, people become statistics. When spirituality loses its humanity, people become doctrines. Humanity reminds us that every issue affects real lives. Humanity reminds us that every issue affects real lives. Yeah. So before labels, before parties, before ideologies, there are human beings. And if we can put human beings first in the conversation, I kind of think everything else kind of, falls in. So a parent worried about feeding their children, that's pretty important. A senior struggling with isolation, again, that's important. A young person searching for belonging. A newcomer trying to build a life. Humanity asks us to see the person before the position. What I've noticed in some cases in our world is that we look to, the famous or the rich and take our cues from them. Like somehow they're better, the prime minister or the governor or the president or whatever, somehow they're better than the guy who's out sleeping on the street. Or the person who's taking the trash out at the McDonald's. Or somebody there flipping burgers. See, we have to shift our perspective so that we begin to see that every human life has value. We may not understand each other fully, and that's okay. What we need to come to terms with is, can we accept each other as we are, where we are? And if there's something that we disagree with, that's okay too. We can disagree and we can choose to disagree. See, we don't all have to be in agreement. We don't all have to think the same way. In fact, I think that would be a huge mistake if we did. I think it's accepting the human journey as an opportunity to really live to our fullest, whatever that looks like for us. To stand in a place of possibility and opportunity without the idea that, I'm better than you are, or so and so's better than all of us, or we want to change all that. So let me just take a look at a couple things in the comments here. My wish to let to exist with myself modestly as one very brave man, about to succumb, however, waiting to let to respect, etc. And I'm not sure what this person's name is. Thanks, whatever it existed or not, let alone Jesus, I'm still and just myself. That's never Buddha proven nobly. Okay, thanks. If I can let to. Okay, just having a little trouble reading those. The journey is that, if we begin to acknowledge that every person has value, whether we see it or not, right? If we can acknowledge that we have value, that we're important, I think we begin to see the world in a little different light. And as such, we can be more accommodating, which means that I can agree to disagree with you. And you can agree to disagree with me. Doesn't mean we have to hate each other, kill each other, push each other aside, make the other person bad and wrong. We can sit back and go, wow, we have different views. Thank you for sharing yours. I think that's a powerful statement. Thank you for showing me what you had believed to be true. The journey that we're on is a really important one. And every life has value. So if we begin to see our own value, we begin to live from that value with greater confidence and greater courage. And that's going to change everything all the way around. So we're going to take a short little commercial break. You're watching The Joy Show here on the New Thought Media Network. And our topic today is spirituality, politics, and humanity. Yes, this could be a wing-dinger of one. Might get some comments on this when it posts to YouTube. Anyway, we're going to be back in just a minute, so don't go away. Plenty more to come.
Please help us say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Center for Spiritual Living United Life, Sunshine Cathedral, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Universal Joy Center, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Home Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, come be you.
And we're back. Well, the conversation today, or the message today, is about spirituality, politics, and humanity, and whether or not the three can be kept separate, or if in fact they're all part of one thing. And I actually believe that it all needs to do this to be truly successful. So I've got some questions here that, maybe you can reflect on through the week. What spiritual value most influences how you engage with the world? For me, it is oneness. The fact that all of us are part of this one system, and therefore we're all connected. And because we're connected, what I do to one, I do to all. I do to myself. So what I want to do is live in a way where I honor each person for who they are, where they are. Doesn't mean I'll always agree with you. Doesn't mean you'll always agree with me. But we can still have an understanding that where we are, how we are, what we're doing in the world is having value for us and will ultimately benefit us in the long run. So what about this? Can someone disagree with you politically and still be treated with dignity? Now, that might be a pretty big question in the United States right now, because there's some division between what people feel should be happening and what is happening. And so there can be some division there. And I'm seeing that same division or something similar here in Canada as well. So what is it that requires dignity? If we disagree on political views, can we still have compassion for one another? I strongly believe that love is the answer. And so by that, what I mean is that love, not the romantic type, but the idea of unity, that idea of acceptance, I think that's the answer. Because if we believe in oneness, then it really doesn't matter what you believe that others have that you don't. All of it can work together. My care for you doesn't come from your worldview. My care for you is you draw a breath. And because you draw a breath, you are valuable. And I may not understand you, but that doesn't mean I can't love you. I may not agree with you, but again, that doesn't mean I can't love you. The key is that we accept each other where we are. There's some people we're going to hang around with a lot, and there's other people that we may avoid. So however it is for us, but ultimately that dignity piece needs to be held up. So how do we stay compassionate when conversations become polarized? Well, that is a toughie sometimes, isn't it? I've had my moments where I'm trying to get a point across and somebody else is trying to get a point across and we're not in agreement. And, we're feeling a little push and pull in the conversation. Compassion asks us to view the other person as we would view ourselves. Begin to see that other person's point of view, although it may not be yours, and it doesn't need to be yours, but we don't need to argue about who's right. The truth is, we both are, according to our own perspective. And your perspective is your own. And you get to choose what it looks like and how it feels. So what would happen if we stopped listening to people who think differently than us? I know. I mean, there's moments when we'd probably like to do that. But would there be any value in it? Would there be any opportunity for us to really explore what we believe? Maybe what someone else is saying may not be our point of view, but it might help us to deepen our understanding of our own point of view or even adjust it. The key is that there is no right or wrong. There's simply perspective. My perception of reality may be different than yours. In fact, it probably is different than yours. And that's okay. If it's different, can I live with the difference? And can I choose to listen to you in a different way? Could I listen to you with the desire to understand you better. That would be a loving act. Yes, it would. Okay. What role should spiritual communities play in addressing social issues? Now, there's something. Do spiritual communities have a role in social issues? What do you think? When we think of the social issues of the day, do we automatically, pardon me, do we automatically sit back and go, oh, well, that's not my problem. That's not my thing. But when we go back to spiritual tradition asks us to care about human beings. Politics is how we organize society, which happens to be with human beings. And humanity is the bridge between the two. Can we, in fact, separate them? I think they're one. Any issue that affects a human being is part of our spirituality. See, I believe we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And everything that we think, say, and do affects and sort of works in with everything else. So we can't separate it all. We can't sit back and say, well, my politics are this, but my spirituality is that. We're not being true to either in that case. But if we as spiritual beings can go, what is in the highest and best good for all of humanity, not just the select few, but everybody, if we begin to do that, we will be affecting social issues. Getting food to people who need it, providing the education that others need, caring for someone, not because they're going to get us somewhere, but rather because we have compassion for the human journey. Spiritual communities absolutely must address social issues. Not from a place of I'm right and you're wrong, but rather from how can we move into supporting humanity to achieve its greatest accomplishments through love and kindness, respect, dignity. How do we make it safe for everyone? That's a big question. But I think spiritual communities play a huge role in that. And again, it's all about our oneness, So, is silence ever neutral? Silence. When we think of silence, if somebody says something to you that you don't agree with, but you don't give your point of view, or you just walk away, is that in fact neutral, or is it agreement? Or is it disagreement and you choose just not to argue? I think it's important for all of us to engage in life, not just our own, but life in general. I think it's up to each and every one of us to play a part in the unfolding of the universe at this time so that we can, in fact, show up in ways that allows for the least of us to come up and the most of us to come to a place of togetherness. When we look at food shortages in the world. There is no food shortage in our world. What there is distribution challenges. The food isn't getting to who needs it. I can't help but wonder what the grocery stores do with the thousands of products that never get purchased fast enough. Is that thrown in the garbage? You know, the produce, the meats. So I don't think poverty, food shortage, I don't think it's necessary. Are we going to resolve it in the next 20 years? I highly doubt it, but it is something for us to think about. There is enough food in our world to feed everyone. We're just not doing it. I think sometimes we've put profits ahead of people. And if that's the case, maybe that's where the adjustment needs to be made. I don't know. Just speaking through my hat at the moment. And here's a good question. How do we advocate for change without creating enemies? Wow. That's a little harder to do. But I think if we come at our challenges, difficulties, disagreements, whatever, if we come from a place of, I'm willing to hear your side of things, and I know not always are we willing, but if we could get ourselves into that place of willingness and listen to each other's point of view, I'm not saying agree with it, just hear it. And if we hear it, can we find a way to be respectful with the individual who holds that different viewpoint than our own? Because they have the right to it. They have the right to think differently. We all think differently. We all perceive differently. Perception is such a remarkable thing because, man, does it look to be true. My perception is mine. Yours is yours. So does it have to create enemies? I don't think so. But finding common ground, finding a way to be together without fighting, therein lies the challenge. You know, if we go back in history, what we'll see is war after war after war after war after war after war after war. Even so much as neighbors fighting over, you know, who put their trash out on the trash day and who didn't, or, you know, whose yard is kept up as nice as who else's. And so we begin to create division, not because we want to, but because we don't understand each other, and maybe we are unwilling to see a different perspective. And if that's the case, again, okay, we're not going to get along with everybody. We're not going to be friends with everybody. But if we could learn to create space for differing opinions and views, different values, if we chose to live together with compassion and kindness, rather than arguing and fighting, and I mean, this is a big ask. I mean, look at the average family. Siblings fighting with each other, parents fighting with each other. We got some work to do. But my hope is that through our spirituality, we will begin to see each other for who we really are and begin to change this direction where we can actually begin to advocate for change without creating enemies. That's my joy, is that someday we'll get there. And I don't know when, but that's okay. So here's the thing. Perhaps the greatest challenge of our time is not political division, it is forgetting our shared humanity. The purpose of spirituality is not to help us escape the world. The purpose of spirituality is to help us transform the way we live within it. That's it. How do we live? That's what spirituality is about. And the world does not need more people who are certain, more people who know it all. What the world needs is more people who are compassionate, more people willing to listen, more people willing to learn, and more people willing to see themselves in one another. See, the minute we start seeing that the world really is made up of people, what if we decided that the majority of us really want to raise our families, live in safe cities, honor our history, honor our life in the world, just honor the existence that we've created in our country, but without making anyone else bad and wrong because they live different than us, or they look different than us, or they speak different than us, or they practice a different type of religion or spirituality than us. Could we not maybe turn around and go, wow, let me find out about this. Let me find out about this person. Let me have a conversation with them. I think when I look around the world today and I look at, let's say Russia and the Ukraine, what's interesting is, the Russian leadership thinks they're doing the right thing, and the Ukrainian leadership thinks the Russians are wrong and that Ukraine is doing the right thing. Who's right? Who's right? It's perception. I think for me, war is ridiculous. I've always thought that. I thought that as a young child, actually. Years and years ago, watching movies like, Bridge Over the River Kwai or Bridge on the River Kwai. I can't remember what it is, but it's like watching a movie like that, or, Saving Private Ryan, or any of these war films. And even as a child, I was gobsmacked. People think we're going to create a peaceful world by killing someone, by taking someone else's property or land, or to me, that was the most ludicrous thing I could ever imagine. And every time I watched one of these war movies or read, the history of World War II, or Mein Kampf, or the bombing of Hiroshima, all of these things, as I'm reading all these books, I'm just scratching my head going, I know I'm just a kid, but this seems insane. I often wondered what it would be like if the presidents or prime ministers or heads of state were the ones to go to war. I wonder what would happen then. Peace on earth. It's easy to send somebody else to do your work for you, but I have to wonder, would we be in the same place that we are now? And maybe we would. Maybe they would choose to go to war anyway. There's a story I want to share called The Quilt. And a grandmother spent years making a quilt. Every square was a different color, pattern, and texture. And one day her granddaughter asked her, why didn't you make them all the same? And the grandmother smiled and she says, because a quilt isn't beautiful despite its differences, it's beautiful because of them. Oh, and humanity is the same. Humanity is the same. We never all think alike. We never all vote alike. We never all see the world the same way. But perhaps our task is not uniformity. Perhaps our task is learning how to belong to one another anyway. Yeah. Can we belong to one another anyway? Hmm. Yeah. Spirituality calls us to love. Politics gives us an opportunity to express that love collectively. And humanity reminds us why it matters. So when these three walk together, we create communities that are not only successful, but compassionate, just, and deeply alive. Got to walk together. And perhaps that's what joy looks like in action. Spirituality, politics, humanity, oneness. So, got a final question for you. What would change in our world if we remembered that every political issue is, at its heart, a human issue? Wow. That might change the game a little bit, mightn't it? Yeah. What would change in our world if we remembered that every political issue is, at its heart, a human issue? Wow. Gandhi said the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. I think many of our countries would struggle a little bit on that one. Many of our societies. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And of course, in today's world, we can sometimes get a little confused about what's real and what isn't. With AI and all that's going on, we're getting all sorts of information that may or may not lead us in the direction that we'd like to go. Life is a journey, and we're all here to live it the best that we can. And if we could get to a place of releasing some of our judgment, letting go of self-criticism as well as criticism of others, if we could really celebrate our differences, acknowledge them, celebrate them, and talk about them. Sometimes when we meet somebody who appears to be different than us, we're afraid to have that conversation. But what if we just asked questions? What if we just asked questions? What if we explored the spirituality that they practice? What if we explored their political viewpoints? What if we explored each person individually and found a way to compassionately, kindly, and respectfully go, wow, that's very cool. that you believe that, or that you live this way, or that, like, we like different food, we like different music, we like all sorts of different things. That doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. Spirituality asks us to remember who we are. So you might ask yourself that question: who am I? Politics asks us how we will live together. How do we take all these people with all these different opinions and attitudes and political, uh, places of being, and how do we do that? How do we bring it all together? Humanity asks us to never forget that everyone belongs. It's an interesting thread, isn't it? And we take that thread and we weave it through our existence. We don't have to agree on everything to care about one another. We don't have to think alike to recognize one another's humanity. And we don't have to choose between spirituality and engagement. In fact, perhaps true spirituality calls us to engage more deeply, more lovingly, and more courageously with the world around us. I like that. All right. So as we get ready to close, I want to invite you, just take a breath in and another one. And just be present in this moment. Just imagine a circle of people around you. Some think as you do. Some believe differently. Some vote differently. Some see the world through experiences you have never known. Yet at the center of the circle, there is light. Not your light, not their light, one light. A light of dignity, a light of worth, a light of humanity. And as you breathe, see that light shining through every person in the circle. Different expressions, one life. Different stories, one humanity. Different perspectives, one shared longing to love, to belong, and to matter. So today, may we have the courage to listen. May we have the wisdom to learn. May we have the compassion to care. And may we remember that beneath every label is a human heart. Yeah. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Gandhi. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Martin Luther King Jr. Let us find a way to walk together, to become curious about each other, and to choose to love, to laugh, to play, however that looks for each one of us. Thank you for watching the show today. Thank you for being part of this incredible community. You're watching The Joy Show here on the New Thought Media Network, and I invite you to like, share, and subscribe, please. And share it with your friends. And if you're enjoying the New Thought Media Network, check out the other programming. There's a lot of it going on. And you can donate at ntmedia.org and hit that donate link. Make sure this programming continues for the long haul. Have a wonderful weekend. Know that you are loved and blessed. Bye for now. This is Barbara Jean signing off.